What's going on, everybody? This is Alex, a doctoral candidate at NUS Business School in Singapore, and I welcome you to another episode of the 4Sight Chats. In each episode of this series, I have a conversation with a leading figure in the field of futures and foresight, to whom I try to ask crucial, difficult, sometimes ignored, sometimes even not so politically correct questions about the field and about the futures in general, encouraging critical discussions that perhaps have not been heard of. And I'm very happy to say that these goals were achieved quite well in this episode, because I had the privilege to talk to someone who could really tell us a lot about the discipline of future studies and about the current challenges it is facing, the president of the World Future Studies Federation, Erik Øverland. Besides being the president of the World Future Studies Federation, Erik is also the co-editor-in-chief and co-founder of the European Journal of Futures Research, a guest researcher at the Free University of Berlin in Germany, and a senior policy advisor to the Minister of Education and Research in Norway. Erik has published several books and scientific articles about future studies and has conducted future studies projects for agencies and business enterprises both in Norway and abroad. In my conversation with Erik, we talk about the World Future Studies Federation as an excuse to untangle some more profound challenges that we are facing within the discipline of futures and foresight, in academia, and in a current society at large. And that is, on one hand, we talk about what the World Future Studies Federation is and does, about its distinct role in bringing together viewpoints that may be paradigmatically different to the rest of academia, and about its difference with other professional associations in the field. But on the other hand, and perhaps more importantly, our conversation speaks of a latent necessity to have more freedom of speech in academia. It speaks of the challenge that the World Future Studies Federation is facing as it needs to clarify its social and political positions. And it speaks of the necessity to design more incentives for individuals to pursue future studies as an academic field of study, as well as other challenges within the field itself. So I hope you will like the conversation. Erik, thanks so much for taking the time for this. I do really appreciate this.
Thank you, Alessandro. I appreciate too.
Amazing. So I have been a member of the World Future Studies Federation for about a year by now. And thanks to the Federation, I have to say I had some of the most stimulating and fruitful intellectual exchanges ever. So I could possibly be the person who can certify of a first-hand experience of how cool the Federation is. But I wanted to ask you, the president. So why don't we start talking about the basics? Why don't we start talking about what the World Future Studies Federation is and does as an excuse and as a way to talk about some more profound problems that we want to tackle as experts in futures and foresight in the society at large. So what is the World Future Studies Federation briefly, and what does it do?
Yeah, nice that you said because I had some similar experience when I joined the Federation for approximately 15 years ago now. So, and that's, I think, that experience that you are pointing at is probably one of the key driving forces of the Federation as such, and also for the members that are a part of the Federation. Very briefly to the history of the Federation. The Federation was established in Paris in 1973. And that was, after, some years of building a network among scholars that wanted to make a difference in that time academic environments. Actually, the first idea that was, that's later stimulated the establishment of the Federation was founded in conference in Oslo in 1967 among Johan Galtung and Robert Jung and several others that met in Oslo under a conference called Mankind 2000. And they started to interchange globally from their positions as academics mainly. And then they started established the federation in Paris in 1973. So in 2023 we're going to have the 50 years anniversary. To me, the federation is a network of very stimulating discussions and a network with academics who have some kind of the same ambition that I got myself. They want to make a difference in their different fields, but they also want to have a kind of arena in which they can discuss things more freely than they usually are able to. So to me, to be a futurist and to be on this arena is very important in the sense that you can discuss a lot of things, not according to academic convention or other kind of rules or convention, but you have the possibility to launch some ideas and you get response on it and so on and so forth. So I think that's maybe the most important thing about the federation, that you have a possibility to make that interchange between scholars and worldwide.
I love what you just said with regards to the possibility of free expression about different ideas. And to add to your point, I was recently talking about some rather profound issues regarding the political dimension. I think you've seen that on the difference between the different scientific approaches. In futures and foresight, but also in the sciences at large. And I think that is one of the many things that sometimes it is difficult to talk about within academic settings. So I do share with you that point. But what do you mean more specifically when you say talk more freely? I'm curious about your perspective on that. When you say talk more freely about issues, do you mean challenges that we're facing as a society, or political issues, or could just be paradigmatically different research approaches? So what do you mean more specifically? I'm curious about your point of view on that.
Yeah, I mean it's freedom and of expression is always limited, but it's limited in different ways, So I think what to me is the most stimulating things to be a part of a futurist community is that we are talking about the future, and also our methodological approach, which is a kind of a bottom line for the whole community, is that you are not talking about how you wish the world should be, or what you are not doing predictions and things like that, but you can throw up some balls in the air, and you can also discuss things that you don't like. I mean, and methodologically seen, you should do that, and that's
Absolutely.
acknowledged within this community and in other academic community. As soon as you have a kind of a new ideas or a controversial ideas, you are somehow hooked in the sense that they say, no, I disagree with you, so I don't want to discuss it necessarily a lot with you. But here is only the methodology of scenario development, for example, as you know very well yourself, is that you shouldn't develop scenario about what you think is going to be, what you think going to happen, but what could happen. And that's these basic methodological approach allow you to discuss a lot of topics that don't how do you express that hook you or something, that you are able to express your ideas without being marked by something.
Yes, I think you know what you're saying, and I think you're also referring to the idea of creating dystopian visions,
For
which is
example,
definitely
that's
necessary, right?
one of, yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of many things that you, but you should be prepared. You should be able to discuss things that you don't like too, so and I think that's very important here.
Well, that also speaks of a conflict that arises often in futures and foresight, which is on one hand we need to create a range of scenarios, but on the other, oftentimes we do have an opinion in which scenario we prefer, right? So, and this is more like, I guess, something you would have your own personal opinion about rather than the federation itself. But how do you place yourself when you have a strong preference for one scenario or one future or one range of futures, but then you also have to create a range of possible futures, right? So this is something that we need to manage.
Yeah, I think if you are creating, if you are in the foresight future projects and you're creating different scenarios, and you got a feeling that, well, that's exactly that one scenario I like that much. I mean, that's the one we're
Right.
going for, then I would say we are made a very bad kind of foresight exercise. It's just
Agree.
bad kind of scenarios, because if you are, if you can't, create different scenarios that also have some kind of attraction to you, I think there's a bad kind of doing foresight exercise, because
That I agree.
then you are, tipping into a very conventional way of doing strategic thinking, that you
Well, then it
are
becomes
starting
prediction, right?
out with what we are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. My point was more about if we go back to Wendell Bell, right, and
Mm,
many followers of his, the concept he argued for was something that along the lines of we need to affect and influence the future in a positive manner, right?
mm, mm,
And that is if you think about this in some way, it is against the idea of creating a range of scenarios in a detached manner. More, it's more like creating scenario in a detached manner and just look at the array of scenarios is a very objective practice. But then future studies, and from my understanding, the World Future Studies Federation in particular, has
mm,
a strong emphasis for improving the futures, which
mm.
is in some way, you see the point I'm trying to make, right? In some way
Absolutely.
is going in favor of a particular scenario, right? So I know personally both camps are very important, because you do want to tweak the
Mm.
society towards the preferable future, but you do also want to create a range of scenarios that are enough objective to be presented with an equal weight. So how do you manage yourself within that space, right? It's quite difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question that you're raising, Alessandro, because uh, to me, I think this you had to differentiate between some kind of overall paradigm diagnosis of the area thing, in the sense that you engage yourself also as a futurist in some political setting, a political
Of
context.
course.
And you see that, and in particular, I think the Federation is kind of a child of that kind of sociocultural movement that emerged in the late 60s and beginning of the 70s, because they were reacting against this kind of vulgar modernism,
Mm-hmm.
and this kind of system thinking that was, a part of the 50s and the early 60s. So they want to be engaged in ecological thinking and the whole, the green shift, so to say. So they actually, members of the Federation was very pioneering in
Mm.
engaging themselves into the new ecologic thinking. And that's, of course, that was a, basic, broad political context in which they were acting. So I agree totally with you. So it just seems to me like there's a kind of a balance here that you have to
Yeah,
take,
okay. Gotta
because
achieve balance.
achieve a balance. And but on the other side, I mean, they were the federation, a member of the federation, was also very engaged with actors in at that time East European countries, Marxian countries, and dictatorships, and a long tradition in getting in dialogue with environmental scholars within those countries. So in that sense, they didn't represent the kind of conventional political position and it was very important for the federation at that time to say we don't take a stand in these kind of political conflict lines, so they were futurists in their dialogue and approach with those actors.
This was at the beginning in the 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah, that was in the late 60s and in the 70s. You see that, for example, the first conference in Rome in the early 70s was actually a premise delivered to the establishment of the Club of Rome, and this all kind of Eleonora Mazzini, for example, she was a key figure at that time, and she has contributed a lot to that establishment also of that network. But Alexander, when that is said, I think we also, as a futurist, we have to discuss, and that's also the challenge that I experienced myself, because I see that there's a kind of a paradigmic change in the overall big picture of political engagement.
Yeah.
And I have addressed in some talks the following question: if futurists in the late 60s and 70s were, promoting and stimulating a very emerging political engagement as a socio-ecological movement, and they were very, very pioneering that. And now we are 50 years later. What could be a different kind of pioneers engagement for futurists today? If you look at the more overall political setting that we are going to be, is it still the ecological? Is it still the sustainability thing, and so on and so forth? Personally, I think maybe it's not. Maybe we should look for something new, something different.
Fascinating.
And I have some candidates for that I won't elaborate on here. But so that's a kind of a dilemma. It's on two levels. It's a big picture thing, diagnosis of the area, and the pragmatic changes in political engagement. On the one side,
those are fascinating. Those are fascinating points. Thanks for sharing. It is fascinating to learn that the federation started in a way that was particularly enmeshed in the political arena, but it was the political arena of 50 years ago. So, I would be very much willing to learn more about your points on how it has changed along the way, and whether you think it should take different directions. And we can still stay on this point on the engagement of the federation with the political environment. And with political environment, I mean the society at large. It doesn't have to be parties, political parties, and so forth.
No, of course not. No, that's not my meaning too. No, of course,
absolutely.
Of course.
So please do share your point of view on what is the current engagement of the federation vis-a-vis the society at large, political and not, and also maybe what should be, if you think it should go in any particular new direction. It hasn't gone as much as you would.
No, I as a president, I'm the president of the Future Studies Federation, but also a individual with some opinions and some thinking around this. So I have to differentiate it, because I think as a president, as a federation, we should stimulate a lot of candidates for the further development. Also, the socio-political context in which we are doing the diagnosis, at least on that. But I think at the time being, and then I can also talk on behalf of the federation. I think we should definitely be very clear about our commitment to the rule of law and some basic democratic principles and things like that. I mean, you see the world how it's are evolving at the time being. You see, almost the United States is challenged by some forces that also challenge the basic achievement within the organization of democracy and the rule of law. You see that in Hungary, you see that in Russia, we see that in a lot of the globalization of anti-liberal democracy orientation, so to say. And I think the federation could take a stand there, at least on as a federation, because you have to be on side of the rule of law, have to be a side of democratic process, because I think future thinking is also democratic aspect, in the sense that they what forecasting do not do expert regime. We can, as foresighters and scenario people, could and futurists could allow more voices into democratic dialogues about the possible futures. So I think here we have a possibility. But when that is said, I also have some other ideas, in the sense that that we have to look into some core elements of the development that we are taking part in, and in particular, I have a background in philosophy and anthropology and sociology and subjects like that, and I've been dealing a lot with transcendental philosophy, the old German classic tradition, and try to use these kind of, because they're thinking quite stringent about the world and the community and the surroundings, and then I think, for example, the emergence of new synergetic technologies, in the sense that you have roboting, you have a lot of you are using terms like you're manipulating the nature, and it's the given nature is challenged, in the sense that you have again modifications programs, you have it's a lot of all the new research within in the technology fields is some kind of challenging your idea about original given human independent nature. So in my opinion, the nature as such is the idea of a nature, originally human independent nature, is getting challenged more and more, and maybe there's never been a such nature. So and then I see that the idea, the differentiation between what is natural and what is artificial, is going to be more and more difficult to keep on with. So and if nature always already have been a kind of artificial thing, then we had to rethink the whole the human relation to nature, and that's what I'm dealing with, and that's what I'm. I don't know if you saw my last post on the listserv, but that's what I think when I use the term universal perspectivism. It's point yourself in that direction, in the sense that you can't, say that on the one side you have the nature independent from us, and on the other side you have the human community. And we have to try to find a very good link to it. But when you said that, the humans are creating that idea of nature as such, which is a subject for our investigations. You have to think, some basic relation between man and the nature in new ways. So that's what I'm playing around with. It's not
Well,
maybe
where do
that
you draw the
clear.
line?
Beg
Where
your
do
pardon?
you where do you draw the line, right? It's very difficult to draw the line between human and nature, and at this point,
Yes,
I
yes,
see it as a merged and mixed phenomenon. At
yes.
this point, it's almost moot
Yeah,
to
you
argue
see
that
that
there is a difference.
very good expressed in a lot of science fiction movies, as I know you are very interested in. You see that you always have a very, you don't know if this is an avatar or is it a human being, all this dilemma
Good,
and
good
this
example.
ambivalence
Yeah.
toward the machine. So you have to develop a new kind of criteria that you immediately know that this is a machine and this is a human being. And that's going to be a big challenge.
Well, that is a challenge that the federation will eventually have to find its position within, because we know very well that there are very conservative point of views regarding the idea of not merging nature and humans in any possible way, which sound uh, often curious in face of the fact that we are already merged in some way. Just the fact that we are talking online shows that
Yeah.
we are, right, in some way merged with the environment.
Yeah, maybe we could change the term sustainability to not the sustainability related to human independent ecologic harmony in nature, but to how to do this merging in a sustainable way, that we are not, getting bad results of it, but we have to optimize this kind of merging between natural surroundings and our efforts to moderate it.
Well, sustainability has to be viewed not just as sustainability of the environment, ecological environment, but just as sustainability of work, sustainability of practices, of
Yeah,
services, of businesses. So it's just the way we should see sustainability. So
yeah.
how,
Well, the
right?
UN is on that track already. So
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So
Mhm.
how do we read the activities of the federation at the moment? Let's say that I'm a person who's intrigued by future studies and who wants to join the federation. What do I expect? Of course, as the listener to this will figure out, they will expect for sure this kind of conversation that we're having here in a more structured manner through list serves and exchange. But beyond that, what can we expect as members? For the listeners.
Yeah. As a member in the federation, of course, you meet a lot of people that are in the same position as yourself and got somehow the same ambition as yourself, and you also, could take part in the world conferences that we are organizing, and also several members are creating a lot of different events that you could join into, because you get the first. Sometimes you get, if it costs money, you get discount on it and so on and so forth. But above all, I think that helps you to uh, to strengthen your position in the institution that you're a part of. Because I know from my own experience that uh, I was a very lonely bird in my surroundings, and you probably got the same experience
Same
yourself.
feeling. I agree. Yes.
And therefore this network is immense important for you, because you meet people who are as crazy as you are, so to say. So you can meet some people with the same mindset, and you can discuss it. So, and that's probably one of the first and the most important thing. And but when that is said, we are now in the process of creating some very new initiative within the federation, and I can just mention a few of them. The
Please.
first that we have Also with our cooperation with Prince Mohammed bin Fahd University in Saudi Arabia, and also UNESCO and other partners that we are involved with, we are creating now a research fund, in the sense that we want to develop some criteria for how to do research in this field. Because if you look at
Beautiful.
authorities around research councils in different countries that are, financing and funding research, our tradition, as this foresight tradition and future tradition, is always falling between all kind of chairs. So at least a very good example recently is that the German Ministry of Education and Research, they launched a new program, where where they invited futurists to take part, and I think, and that's not very many sorts of that. That is, so we see as a federation, we are aiming at also influencing authorities around the world to think more in that, along that line, because we need some more specific funding opportunities for what we're doing, not to be a part funding of different kind of other programs. But that could also be an option. But so that's one thing. And if we could, for example, approach different kind of foundation to say we have an idea, we have a concept, and so on, so forth, then maybe we can attract some of your funding resources to address these kind of topics, these kind of thematics. So that's what we are aiming at in the long run. So we just started out that work, and I think that's could be of immense significance for futurists if that's going to happen. And we already have the second call now for this relatively small amount of money, but it's for this PMU WFSF research fund. That's just going to send out the second call now. So that's the first, step in that direction. So that's the one thing. And another thing that I'm very happy about that we are doing is what we call the accreditation project, which is called it's a project that I created with Jay Gary and the Ep.8 together, because we see we need some more thorough criteria for how to create educational schemes in this field on university level and also on the level, so to say. So we have, so we're going in April, we're going to launch a big program on behalf of the Federation and also the Ep.8, by the way, in which we are going inviting directors of foresight program, future studies, master programs around the world to take part, and also
Wow.
take out the experiences and review the experiences and offer authorities and universities assistance when they are wanting to establish programs in this field. So I'm very happy about that, because that's, I think, and that's a very personal, also very important thing to me to be a part of. And Luke, our friend from Australia, is heading this group, and I'm very looking forward to it. So I'm gonna wait and see it.
Amazing news. I'm also extremely happy. I think the idea to somehow legitimize the field, it's just so meaningful. I commend you for that. You mentioned APF, so I also wanted to ask you, what is the difference between the World Future Studies Federation and other associations such as the Association of Professional Futurists or the World Future Society? Because I might have my own opinion just by my experience, right? But I'm sure it's quite skewed. So I wanted to hear your own personal view on this, which is certainly more systematic and truthful than my limited experience. So what is the difference from an outsider, right? Imagine you talking to someone who has not joined any of those federations or associations and is considering, what is the difference between the three main groups we have?
Yeah, well, Futures Society, I don't know that much
Okay.
about. Although I have for many years ago, a lot of friends who always attending the big meetings that they organized and so on and so forth. So I won't say very much about the World Futures Society, but APF was founded in 2002. And obviously, it was a demand there at that time, because there was a lot of consultants doing, doing foresight activities and foresight work, and they were, needed a kind of a fora that discuss more practical aspects of doing foresight activities and futurist activities. So, and I'm admiring APF, and they are doing to me. It looks like they're doing a very professional job in the sense that they are, a big organization. And they are also in the starting phase. This is very US oriented, but it's not that anymore.
At least at the moment, yes.
Yeah, and they are also very well established in Southeastern Asia and things like that. So it's also turning into a more global organization that it used to be. So I think that's perfect. So my personal attitude toward this is that we have to cooperate, because we are we are complementary in the sense that the WFS had its own tradition, and that's a bit longer tradition historically seen, but it also weaker regarding the administrative resources that we are having, and we also need to reach a more professional level on the administrative side, which we are working very heavily on at the time being. But the main difference, as I see it, is that the WFS have a much stronger tradition within the research area that are attracting more scholars, and they prefer discussing that within the federation, the area within the federation than otherwise. So, but that's not black and white here. So a lot of people are member of both APF and the federation. So in my opinion, I have a fantastic cooperation with Jay Carey, as he was chair of the APF, and I'm going to approach chairman too soon. And I think more we can cooperate, the better it is. And in the long run, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's. I think it's the field is getting. Yeah, I mean it's right. The field is broad. I mean APF. I don't know how many members they got. About 600-700 or something.
Yeah, 500 or 600, something like that.
500 or 600, and the federation got a bit less than 300. So it's still a quite exclusive gang here. So if you look at the world in itself, so.
So what is your point of view on the future or futures of the associations in the field? We arguably need to expand, and we arguably need more of them. But then how do we distinguish them, right? Because I'm thinking of the analog in management, which is the only analog I can possibly provide, being in a business school, right? And I see a number of associations, country-based, region-based, theoretically based, empirically based, and also thematically based, right? I just give you an example. There are associations within the field of management that are more prone to do entrepreneurship research, right, or diversity research. But there are others that are much more oriented to more traditional themes, such as leadership. or maybe it's just about epistemology itself, right? There is an association that is called the Academy of Management, and that is perhaps the biggest, that is very much keen to conduct hypothetical deductive research. Most of its journal, well, I would say the flagship journal publishes excellent hypothetical deductive research. But then on the other hand, we have an association in Europe called EGOS, which is much more keen to publish alternative research paradigms and qualitative research. So when I see the futures of foresight, or futures and foresight, I do hope in some way that as the interest in academia and practice expands, we will also have this differentiation, right? We might have some locally based associations for each country or for each region, and they might collaborate with each other. And we might also have some association that are more thematically oriented towards a particular kind of foresight rather than another, right? What do you see in the future of, or in the possible futures, that is better to say, of this field?
Well, as a futurist, I know how to create a lot of different scenarios.
So provide us at least one, but not just one.
But I understand what you're up to. So I agree very much with you indicating that our community have a big potential, much more potential than we think we have. And I see that if you are mentioning, the Association of Leadership, and a lot of thematic different associations, and you also somewhere, as far as I understand, said that it's publishing so many articles around the world that really actually is also about the future, but they never take the word future in their mouth, because it's quasi unscientifically, So first we had to change, the attitude toward this field as such, and that's what we are really trying to do from the side of the Federation, to influence that in one way or another. And also, regarding this development in these financial funding schemes, and
that could help. That could help a lot.
That would be help a lot, because there's also acknowledgement of these kind of activities. So we have to work on that. From all of us have to work on creating that space. But I see also. I have a background as action researchers within the Work Research Institute in Oslo, which also, have interface towards the new, upcoming management research activities, because they somehow found the participatory approaches within work research, and you see that they also always about the future in one way or another, but they use different terms, they use different words, and they didn't know about this tradition at all. You see, for example, you are probably very well known about the Black Swan book on Nassim Taleb. I mean, this guy had written 2 books with on 800-900 pages each, without mentioning this tradition with one single word.
I totally agree. And but that goes for many other authors that are talking about the futures. Well-known authors such as Harari, I would mention another one, who are talking almost exclusively about the future, and have the word future in the cover of the book without mentioning anything from this field. So I can't tell you how I agree with that. Absolutely.
So but that's an indication that we are still a very marginal group towards the research community, and if we, in the long run, we should have an ambition to change that, and just to find out how we're supposed to change it. And if I was involved in accreditation of a person who was, is supposed to be a new chair in the Future Institute, and he was an expert in the management and leadership field. but he didn't want to use the word future or the foresight or scenarios or whatever, because it's because it still makes some unscientific connotation, and they're afraid of their own career
This
if
goes
they
back to
involved in that, and that's, I mean, you have to change that.
I agree. This goes
Yeah.
back to what I was talking about with Andy Hines in another
Mm.
conversation prior. And what he said was extremely fascinating is that at a certain point of his career, he found out that he could not use the word foresight or the words referring to the methods
Yeah.
because the very use of the word sounded like a seer looking into a crystal ball, something like that. So it didn't sell well, simply didn't sell well, right? So
Yeah.
he liked to say that he used foresight in a stealth manner.
Yeah.
Stealth foresight.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. So I totally agree with that. Yeah, but I think
Mm.
the World Futures Studies Federation uh, current initiative that you just shared with me, the idea to legitimize and potentially fund research at a high level, is just so fundamental. Because if you think about this, and we had a similar conversation in the listserv, is
Mm.
all about incentives. I mean, there
Mm.
is a
Mm.
big chunk of this problem that is the incentive component, right? If we just had more incentives and more positions, more professor of future studies jobs, so to speak, right, all over the globe, then it would be there would be an incentive for students to pursue this as a higher
Yeah,
education
of
and
course.
for people to pursue it as a career. So eventually the field would expand. So we need to create that incentive, and you doing that, I think it's an amazing initiative. You're just building up the incentives. We need to work towards that end.
Yeah, I really believe in that. I think that's very important to do that. Just one word on this chairs on future studies. I mean,
Mm.
or future research, because I've been living playing staying a lot, spending a lot of times in Berlin at the Free University in Berlin, and I was invited there for many years ago by Professor De Haan at the Institut Futur, as the Institute of Future within the university, and he had a position and he had a chair. It's just retired now, but he had for many years, and he was had a professor title for future research. And in Germany, you use the term Zukunftsforschung, which is translated to future research and not future studies. So,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of very interesting contribution, but unfortunately, most of them are all in German language. So that's why I am challenging them a bit that time being, that we had to, go more international, because they really have something to contribute to the field. And that's the reason why we established the journal, the European Journal of
Oh yeah.
Future Research and not Future Studies, or something like that. So we use the word future research in the title deliberately. So, yeah.
So what else do we need to do to improve the situation? Okay, just try to be the devil advocate here. The World Future Studies Federation has been advocating for such an important mission for decades, but is unfortunately still quite at the margins, right? So okay, one is build up the incentives for sure. But what else can we do?
Yeah, I think for on the sake of the federation, which is very marked by voluntarily work on all involved for many years, I think that's my as I became the president, my was one of my ambitions was to change that. In a sense, I want to
Mm.
professionalize the secretariat. So the first thing I did is to, to have the possibility to allocate some money for the function of the director for Victor,
Mm.
as he could spend more time in doing his work. And I think that's the way to go. We are just now have technicians that are also connecting to the secretariat for the federation, which are could take the more technological website. To how the website maintenance thing and all the kind of stuff. So that, I think that's the way to go. If we want to expand, we need a much more professional organization that we have, because in my opinion, voluntarily work is very, very important, but it has also its limitation in the sense
Yeah.
that when it's getting too much, people just withdraw, and then you are staying there. So that's the reason why I'm in the beginning was a bit reluctant to put too many balls in the air, because I know that I can't sit with all this ball on my own chest, because I have a
Yeah,
limited time and
I agree.
resource myself. So that's, I think, for on the sake of federation, that's the way to go, and we are moving in that direction now. So we actually been able to go quite a few steps in that direction, and but we have to do it even more thoroughly. So I see, in addition to creating new kind of partnership with different kind of financial relation to the federation, I mean, we could, create other kind of packets and relation to the federation on the members. So that's also one thing that I want to stimulate. And then you have this kind of as accreditation thing. This is also a financial dimension in it, because we are, not giving it that competence away, but we are offering it in a kind of a market. So we are taking some fees, and so that can fund these activities. So I see we have to professionalize our federation much more than we are able to, but we are on the way doing that. And we also have to expand. I mean, I totally agree, but I've been also reluctant to expand too much too quickly, because we need the infrastructure first in place.
Sure.
And we need to be more clear about what we can offer. So we are still a work to do to say to new members, if you join us, we can offer you that and that and that. So that's still a way to go to be more clear about what we can offer, and even develop new kind of services and offers to our membership. So yeah.
I see. But when you say professionalize, do you mean professionalize in the practice arena, not just in research? Because that would also make the federation closer to the Association of Professional Futurists. Or did you mean something else?
No, I meant in when I said
Academia.
just what I said, I mean, it's an economic administrative way that we have
All right. All
to,
right.
to we have to be able to fund some basic activities within the federation that
Yeah.
make us able to be here at all. So yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, there's a lot of other things, and then the research fund thing is also a kind of professionalization, in the sense of that we are being able to fund some research activities according
Yeah.
to we have a very interesting research committee that are doing a great job, and a very thorough and great job now. So
Great to know. I do see really a tremendous potential in this federation, because since I opened this YouTube channel, I was contacted by many potential students. You
yeah,
might be you I actually, I don't think you would be surprised about this, but I was contacted, especially when I created those introductory videos. I was contacted by people who I guess are younger than me, who ask me, what is this thing called future studies? Where
mm,
do I study it? So
mm,
perhaps the most common question I have is, where do I study this? What is it?
mm, mm,
Can you tell me if I can do a bachelor degree in this? So really foundational questions that you might
mm,
not have if
mm.
it were economics, right? So
Yeah.
I see a tremendous opportunity for a federation like this to do some basic foundational work of engagement, right? Community reach, right? Just to say, hey, there is such a thing as future studies. You can actually study this is the places that, even if they're not called bachelor of future studies, they have professors that would allow you to do a minor, or to cover it within
Yeah.
your degree, something like that. That would be
So that at
amazing.
least they acknowledge that's okay if you do it, because you have the background of the federation. So, and they
Yes.
say, they have some quality insurance that
Yes.
this is something that you are allowed to be involved in, things like that. Yes.
Amazing.
So, Absolutely, I agree very much with you, Alexander, and I also experienced it myself. And that's the reason why I think we also have to, in the long run, change the whole interface that towards the public, that we have, at least attracting much more younger people than
as well. Yeah.
the case today. So yeah.
Cool. Erik, I just noticed that we reached the end of our conversation, so I don't want to steal any more of your time, but it was a very edifying conversation, and I do thank you for all of this information. It was great to know more about what is the federation going on to do in the next few years. And for those who want to learn more about this federation, I will paste the link to the website in the description box down below this video. So I thank you again, and I wish you and the World Future Studies Federation all the best.
Thank you, Alexander. It was a pleasure being here. So good luck with your channel and all the other things that you do. Very appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Hopefully next time we can talk about the development of this federation as well.
Yeah, let's do that. We are planning, by the way, in the World Conference in Berlin in October. I'm going to have a strategy seminar for the federation. As a part
we'll plan something for that. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Erik. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.